Hello guys and welcome to this week's episode of the Interwood podcast. My name is Mason Sturges and I'm joined today by Frankie Kiernan and Jake Mitchell, and I am here with our special guest for this week, which is science teacher and Manchester United fan Mr. Ngwenya. So welcome, and obviously we're going to talk a little bit about your club, Manchester United, in a little bit of a pickle right now. Got Erik ten Hag as their new manager. What do you think the club needs right now to take them forward?
Thanks for having me, first of all. Been really looking forward to the episode, being on it. Now, in terms of my club, I think the main thing is just structure. Structure and learning to love the club. Yeah. You know, we're in the same position I think Chelsea were a couple of years ago, and Arsenal actually kind of transitioning out of it. It's just the fans don't like it, the players don't like it.
It's just the toxicity around the club, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
The big egos.
Yeah, it's a big factor, isn't it? Yeah.
And for me, what I'd like to see, and they're kind of doing it right now, it's just stripping away some of the bits you don't need.
Yeah, like Pogba.
Yeah,
a big one.
Yeah, some older players. Not only that, structurally as well. Because if you look at all the top clubs, the way they run, Man U just weren't it.
Yeah.
We were governed by a CEO who's more interested in money, if I'm honest, financial aspect, merchandise. I just want to see good football, and that's all I want to see. Good football. I want to see style of play, not just counter-attacking. I'm sorry, but for me, it's over now. We're in a new age, different coaches, new styles of play.
Yeah, I think it's just like, it's the history of United, isn't it? Like, where forever you go back to like George Best and things, and like United globally as a brand, they're probably the biggest club in the world. Like, it's crazy. They're by far the biggest league. Like, financially they're huge, but I mean, we all talk about the Glazers and, like you say, structural problems at the club. I feel like all of the issues, they're coming from the top down, if that makes sense. And I think having Ten Hag, I rate him. I think he could, and it's a big statement, do to United what Klopp did to Liverpool, where give him a few years, a lot of backing in terms of money, and he could make you a huge force again. I really do think so. I think De Jong would be a huge signing, and you know, some of the players he linked with, Anthony. But I think the biggest issue is definitely at the top of the club with the Glazers. But yeah, it's in a bit of a state right now. It's not look great. I think the signing of Ronaldo as well, we debated it last week. I think that he actually was a bad signing for the club and was a panic buy. I don't know if you'd agree or not with that.
There's two sides to the coin. At the end of the day, you cannot have one of your best players ever go to a rival.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
Regardless
it did panic
of
them,
where you're at.
Yeah.
It did. Regardless of where you're at, you can't have one of the greatest goal scorers go to your rival.
Yeah.
It just can't happen. You know, so I thought it overall it was a good signing because you know he's going to get you goals.
Yeah.
It did disrupt the team massively because the style of play we were playing was transitional, was fluid because you had Anthony Martial, Rashford switching in between, and actually what Ollie was trying to go to, it completely ruined his plan.
Yeah, this is what I was saying as well. Yeah, so you came second with him. Like, I don't even rate Ollie as a manager, but he was on track in his projects and stuff. As soon as Ronaldo came in and he couldn't do the work in terms of the press that Solskjaer wanted, it just didn't click as well. And I think Fernandes as well was massively affected. I really rate him. He got a hat trick when Ronaldo wasn't there against Leeds, I think, in the opening day. Since then, I thought, you know, people have been saying, how was he compared to De Bruyne? Whereas at his peak, he was that kind of player. But yeah, it's a shame actually where the club's at right now. But when you look at some of the past, like you lived through the treble season of United that we didn't get to see, which I'm sure was brilliant to live through. It was some of the greatest players the Premier League has ever seen. So
how's that as a young kid, I would assume, watching your team win a treble? Like,
it was hard to remember, if I'm honest, because I was really young.
Fair enough.
Like my proper year of getting into football was sort of 2000, between 2000 and 2002. My mum gave me a Beckham shirt, and that was the first team I saw was Manchester United, the first team I've supported since then.
Oh, fair.
Ever since. So I really remember, like you're saying, the teams when we were winning just titles. And the key thing we were watching was just A, the team was dogged, they never gave up. B, you knew if you stepped out of line, you knew what you were going to get. Yeah. And these days, just don't see that.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, Sir Alex, like in terms of man management and as a manager, you know, definitely up there as one of the best ever. And he was just, what I love about Sir Alex is obviously he spent so long at United, going through different decades and different styles of football, and he adapted his game, whereas many managers can't do that. Like Mourinho's fading out a bit now, and like I hear he had like the street, like the clubs in in Merseyside, in Manchester as well, he'd have them like locked down basically, like because he knew that the players would go clubbing there, and if someone saw them coming in, he'd get a phone call, he'd be the first to know. So I think his strictness with his players, and I mean there was a few times where he fell out with a few top players and he gets criticised for that, but overall he was just so good for you, and ever since losing him we've never reached that peak. So
yeah, no, it happened with Rooney actually.
Yeah,
because every pre-season he had Rooney.
Yeah.
Always absolutely scared because he knew Rooney would just drink.
Yeah.
So he kept an eye on him everywhere he went.
Yeah.
Everywhere. So, you know, but I completely agree. I mean, right now it is kind of exciting though. Because back to my era, we only had essentially 2 teams, maybe 3 teams challenging.
Yeah.
Now you can imagine it. You got, what, 6?
Yeah, the Premier League is the best it's ever been.
You can't even count out the teams outside.
Exactly, yeah. If you look at the league, like there's very little easy games. Very little.
Yeah.
Every game's tough.
I think the amount of money in the Premier League, like the Premier League was never the biggest league, even though it had the teams like United. Like in terms of financially, we had Italy dominated for a very long time. The attraction of the La Liga. This is like the first time we're seeing players like Haaland having the free choice and going, I want to come to the Premier League. Like it's absolutely brilliant. And we were very lucky to be living through that. But yeah, there's been many good players in the past of the Premier League, of course, which leads us on to today's topic, which is the all-time Premier League 11, highly requested by many viewers. And I think this will be a really interesting one because I think we could have very different teams.
I think there'll be quite a few Man United players in there.
Well, yeah, I think there would.
Before we go on, how far back are we going? Right from the beginning?
I think from the start of the Premier League, from when the Premier League started.
92,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Just clarifying, okay.
Yeah.
Right, do you want to start off with goalkeepers first?
Absolutely. Right, so in goal, there's many different players you can have, of course. But the main ones that we've got listed here are David Seaman, Peter Schmeichel, Petr Cech, David De Gea and Edwin van der Sar. Mason, would you like to start us off?
I've got to go Peter Schmeichel. I can't not. Like, some of his saves he made, like, obviously I've never seen him play, but some of the saves I've seen fantastic. Like, I can't see, like, David Seaman, like, going through the others, like, David Seaman, he was good. Remember that save he made for Arsenal against, who was it, Sheffield United?
That is he's pulled off one of the best saves that I've seen.
I've ever seen, yeah. But still, I thought Peter Schmeichel did outweigh it, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
Petr Cech, he was good. I'd have him in my team any day, but like I'd still say Peter Schmeichel is still better. David De Gea, another reason why Manchester United didn't finish lower than what they did last season.
He's one of the best shot stoppers, isn't he? I think that the Prem's seen.
Yeah, but and Van der Sar, Schmeichel is better than Van der Sar, so I'm going to go Peter Schmeichel.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think he will be like the common favourite. I think the thing with Schmeichel is many people say he wouldn't fit the modern game, things like that, because he wasn't quite as good with his feet. But I think the mentality of that United side and the likes of Roy Keane and things like, I think Keane and Schmeichel had a scrap once or something. Like the mentality, having that at the back line, just that leader, someone shouting, and there's no denying that he's probably the best one-on-one keeper that the Premier League's ever seen in terms of a striker running towards goal. You'd want to have Peter Schmeichel in goal. So for me, I think I'd have to agree with you. I think he's just so good. I really like Seaman. I think he was really good, and that one save I really enjoyed. But Peter Schmeichel for me is the best goalkeeper.
And you nailed it there. It's about command of the area.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
What are you going for then, Jake?
I'm going with Czech.
Czech.
And I think
we go.
The only reason I'm going with this, I think obviously he got the most clean sheets in the Premier League. I think it's 202 off memory. I think it's around that. And I think if he was to jump back in his prime, I think he'd be able to suit. You know, he could play out the back. I think he'd be perfect. And I think he is the best Premier League.
Probably still has it. We saw him at Soccer Aid, didn't we?
Soccer Aid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have to have him in my Excel.
Yeah, he's definitely up there, and he did at Chelsea and Arsenal. I think it's just really impressive, and I mean, I would definitely go for Peter Schmeichel over him, but I think it's one of those where it's apples and pears. You know, it's different things. You take your fancy, like you take whichever one you prefer, and I think it's not one of those where it's blatantly Peter Schmeichel. I mean, for me, I'd definitely go for him, but I couldn't fully understand Petr Cech.
What about you, sir?
Is it too early for Ellison? What's his name? Edison and Alisson?
Well, I was going to include Alisson in this list actually, alongside De Gea. I think it's a weird one. With Edison, I've always said I think Edison's a massive systematic player, where City don't face a lot of shots. He's the best goalie in the world with his feet. They have the most possession. In terms of as a goalkeeper, I think he'd be crap at any other club from what I've seen in terms of shot stopping. But Alisson, I really rate him. I think he's the best in the world. Another one of those
Best
where one-on-one,
Yeah.
I think I could definitely see Alisson getting a shout, but I think you'd have to give him a few years. Obviously, winning the Premier League was a big achievement, and you'd probably have the likes of Van Dijk in the conversation for best centre back, Salah for best winner. So maybe he has earned his spot. But yeah, it's definitely a mention.
Right.
Good with his head as well.
No, who are you going for? Sir?
Good with his head as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Can't overlook Schmeichel.
Fair enough.
Can't overlook Schmeichel.
Is that bias or?
A little bit biased, but for me, it's just consistency.
Yeah.
Consistent command of the area, shot stopper, just what you'd want in the keeper.
Fair enough.
Number one.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Right. Fullbacks. Do you want to start with the left or the right
So
side?
We can start with the right
let's start
back.
with the right back. So the nominees we've got Gary Neville, Kyle Walker, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Branislav Ivanovic, and Lee Dixon.
Ooh.
Right, so
a few big names in there.
A few big names. So we'll start with Jake. Why not?
All right. I'm torn between two. I think Trent, maybe because he's the best right back I've seen since I've been born. But I think Neville also has got to have a shout. You know, the amount of trophies he's won at Man U,
his career, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think I'm leaning towards Trent because I know a lot more than him. I haven't barely really seen Neville. What I've heard, he's very good.
Yeah, it's fair.
But I think Trent for me, he can do it.
Do you think maybe it's too early for you to say he's had a better Premier League career than Neville? Or
yeah, I completely agree with you. But I think just because I've seen a lot of Trent, I'll probably have to lean towards him.
I think the modern day fullback is just so different. Isn't it? Like they're basically like if Trent had to do Neville's role, he wouldn't do as well. If Neville did Trent's role, it would be a joke, wouldn't it? So I mean, Trent is one of the best passers of the ball that I've seen in the Premier League, and from right back for me, it's a huge statement, but it's something that you very rarely see, isn't it? He's like Beckham at right back, isn't he? But he's definitely up there. I think for me, the way I've done my 11 is I'm going off their best season in the Prem. So I fully understand if you want to go off their careers and what they've won and things, but I think if you're going off their very best season, maybe a bit of Spurs bias, I think Kyle Walker, when City got 100 points in the Premier League that year, I think no winger would want to go against that pace, and I think his biggest weakness at Spurs was his decision making. He made mistakes, he'd often get red cards, but I think Pep's really tactically assured him and made him a much better player tactically, and I think maybe other than putting Cancelo at right back, he's probably the best right back in the league. I think James and Trent I would actually have over him right now, but I think if you're talking at their very best, and obviously I don't think we've seen Trent at his best yet, to be fair to the guy, and what they've won, I think you can't look past Kyle Walker for me.
Fair enough.
But firstly, what formation are we going?
4-4-2.
It's a classic, okay.
The classic, yeah.
Now, I'll probably say you've got listed players there who are, like you said, modern day fullback, so wing back essentially, and old school fullback. For me, and it was a hard decision, a lot of people disagree with me, but I'm going to go Kyle.
Interesting.
Kyle Walker.
Having seen both of them through the years, I think pace, crossing, that's a big one. Defensive awareness.
It's covering as well with his legs, isn't it? Like that's what it is for me. Yeah.
Over a period of time, Gary Neville, I love him. Absolutely adore Gary Neville, but Kyle Walker for me, and he's done it multiple teams as well. That shouldn't be a criteria, but I've seen him evolve over time.
Versatile as well. He can, obviously plays centre back,
right centre back for England.
Exactly.
So, fair enough.
Mason.
Same as Jake. I'm leaning towards Trent just because I've seen him play. I've obviously seen Kyle Walker play. Ivanovic I saw play when I first started coming into football as well. I think Ivanovic and Lee Dixon are out of the equation really. So between Neville, Walker and Trent, I'm going to go with Trent just purely because crossing of the ball, absolutely brilliant. His passing's brilliant. Obviously he's playing in a very, very well run Liverpool squad as well.
Yeah, of course, tactically.
That is my main reason really.
On that note of tactically though, a question is could you argue is he a system player? Because I think everyone talks about how much he gets caught out defensively, and in that Champions League final, obviously if he just looks over his shoulder, that one goal, I think that he's such a good footballer, but do you think he'd do it in other teams? Because I was going to say as well, you look at Reece James, I think that in terms of going forward and defensively, he's arguably the most complete right back in the Premier League, and he's still young. So do you think when he retires, if he continues on the trajectory, he's already won a Champions League, put in a great shift in the Champions League run, do you think that James could oversee Trent as a right back? Because once Klopp goes, Trent maybe won't fit a system.
Because James has got quite a while. Yeah,
both do. Yeah, of course.
Well, both do. Yeah, but for now anyway. Obviously, it'll be up for debate later on down the line, probably. But I'm still going to go Trent.
I've got another argument, even though I am arguing my own point. I've just realised this. You know, the season prior to this one, you know, Virgil van Dijk was obviously injured, and we saw Trent drop off massively.
Yes.
Do you think Trent, the only reason he does so well is because he has got such good foundation,
and he's allowed to go forward?
That's what I mean by a very well run
system.
Yeah. Like without Virgil, I think obviously we have seen Trent slip off with Virgil not there. However, Walker has got great. He's better at defending
than Trent
is. Mm-hmm. But I'm still going to go Trent just because of his attacking play.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense. His talent is undeniable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know it's all time, but in a 4-4-2, how much defensive spaces would you have with Trent there?
I think So if you are talking about it as what team would you want to field, like in a 4-4-2, and you've got a bit more cover because it's not wingers that was highly pushed up, maybe you wouldn't mind having someone like a Kyle Walker who could also do the defensive duties. Yeah. So, I think in a 4-4-2 especially, I'd go Kyle Walker. But to be honest, if I'm just going off, as a player, I think I'd still have him, to be honest. I think he could do right back, right wing back, anything, to be honest. I think he's a very, very good footballer, and I think Pep is massively to do with that.
The left backs now?
Yeah, we can move on. For left back, I think this is the least dense position.
Yeah.
I think that, I'd expect we have the same player, but the four people I've got down here are Dennis Irwin, Ashley Cole, Patrice Evra, and Stuart Pearce.
Cole.
Ashley Cole.
Yeah. Ashley Cole.
Dennis Irwin. Sorry,
Dennis Irwin.
Era. And dead ball ability.
Well, I was going to say, I think Dennis Irwin, he could play both, couldn't he? Right back and left back. And in terms of that, as a player, diversity and the set plays were phenomenal. I think if I was to go for an out-and-out left back, I would go Cole, to be honest. I think the thing about Cole is he was ahead of his time in the sense of he was brilliant defensively. I mean, Ronaldo said he's the toughest opponent he's come up against, but he was also so good going forward. And for Chelsea and Arsenal and England, he performed consistently. Yeah, of course. He was a consistent performer, weren't he? And I think, I think he's the best left back the Premier League. And I think he's one of the best that the world has seen, to be honest. I think we were really lucky to have him. He's a really, really good player.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Right. So
why would you go for Owen ahead of?
Yeah.
It was just his awareness of space, where to be, because he wasn't the quickest person. Like Cole, nowhere near. But he just knew, and his delivery. Wow, it was great. I mean, if you don't know him, Google him, Dennis Irwin. He was absolutely cracking delivery-wise, whether it was, in from the left, anywhere in the dead ball area, 18-yard area, even back. It was great. So
fair enough. All right, we'll move into... we'll go to centre-backs, of course, So this is, I think, the first position that I think we'll all have some disagreements. I think there's so many good players that we've had. In our list, we've got Tony Adams, Sol Campbell, Judas... Rio Ferdinand, Terry, Vidic, Company, Bruce, Desai, Sam, and Van Dijk.
Ferdinand straight in.
Yeah,
Ferdinand straight in.
He was. I think he was. Obviously, I wouldn't know, but I'm pretty sure he was the first of the modern day centre backs. Quick, ball playing. I think he's got to be in there alongside with Terry, in my opinion.
He's not going.
I know them two don't like each other at the moment, but I think Terry, what a leader. Obviously in that Chelsea side, he was fantastic. Yes, obviously.
So on Rio and Terry.
Rio and Terry is my two picks. I think them two would work well together, even though
I don't have either.
Really?
So I'm going off. I think for me, if I'm going off their best season, then I'm thinking about centre backs that were dominant, centre backs that could do it in any system. It doesn't matter. Right. And I think in terms of physically, we've only seen two players for me in the Premier League that are as tall, fast, strong, and just overall solid as these two players.
Say Company, aren't you?
Yep, Stam, because I think at United he fell out. He fell out with Ferguson. Ferguson sold him. Many people said it was a mistake. He done it at AC Milan, one of the best teams ever in terms of a club. And at United, he was just a bully. I mean, he was in Soccer Aid once, right? Bear in mind, it's charity. It's all for charity. Yeah. A player goes to go past him. It's not even like he's aggressively pushed him. He's tried to body slam. He bounced off. Stan stayed, like, he is, in terms of a unit, and you know, both were
Yeah.
Dutch. He was just an absolute beast. I think physically, he is like the most dominant centre back, and for me, he's just a must-have. I know if Jack was here, he'd agree with that one.
Mm.
And then Van Dijk for me, because I think
Van Dijk.
again with his legs and his height and his strength and things, and like you were saying, we see how Liverpool crumbled without him and how vital he is to that team. I think Rio and Terry, obviously fantastic centre backs, and the legacy they built in the Premier League at Chelsea and United are legendary, and I can't argue at all if you have them. I'm not saying this delusion, but I think for me, as a centre back partnership, I don't see anything wrong with Van Dijk and Stam, to be honest, in terms of they've got everything, both of them. Maybe not passing, but they're just so dominant.
I've gone Ferdinand and I've gone Van Dijk. I've gone Van Dijk because I put Trent in. Because I said about Trent crumbling without Van Dijk.
Oh, thinking about the system, I get it.
Thinking about the system, so I've gone for Van Dijk. I'm not saying that, you know, John Terry would be absolutely brilliant, as you say, but just because we know how good, how effective Trent Alexander-Arnold can be with Van Dijk in there, I'm going for him for that reason.
That's fair enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Going Ferdinand and Company.
Company, wow.
Absolute beast. I'm sorry, those two together.
That would be such a good duo.
Yes, Stam, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely underrated and just didn't spend enough time. But those two, longevity as well. The length they did for Van Dijk, the only reason I'm not going to put him is just because give me 5 more seasons.
Yep.
5 more seasons to see what. Because the way I look at it is, if you took a player out the back four, how much does the team crumble?
Yeah.
We saw it for one season, Van Dijk. Okay, let's see the next season. Because the problem is with Liverpool, they also had Joe Gomez missing, Matip missing.
Yeah.
So let's just see one player missing. What difference does it make? And
Fair
you
enough,
saw it.
yeah.
You saw it with Ferdinand missing for periods, Company missing.
Yeah, like I say, you can't argue with, again, Company is in that bracket of Terry and Rio in terms of a legacy in the Premier League and what they've done, and I completely get them over Stam if you're going off as a Premier League footballer. That completely makes sense to me, but I think for me, if you are going off the best season, which is what I was judging on, I'd definitely have Sam Van Dijk, but all of the others are class. To be honest, I think Company is... It's a bit of a weird one because obviously we watched him as well, and as much as I didn't watch these players, so maybe it's an unfair comparison, I would have had the likes of Vidic and Tony Adams over a Company, but it's an interesting one. They're all class, aren't they?
2-3 seasons.
Yeah, we did.
I remember watching a game at Selhurst with Vidic. He was still very good, but
he was one of them where he just like he would head a bus if it would come towards him, wouldn't he? Like he'd always have a broken nose because I mean attackers must have been terrified going up against Vidic. So.
You should have seen him the first season though.
Is it?
Absolutely didn't know what hit him. Second season, he's like, okay, we know what's coming.
Yeah.
Still can't get over him getting absolutely destroyed by Torres though. That was game 4-1.
Yeah, jeez.
Still lives in my memory, but we'll move on.
Oh, fair. So yeah, a few disagreements, but Van Dijk's up there. And then
I think they all have
Ferdinand's up
Terry,
there.
the main ones.
Ferdinand,
I think we can all agree that Sol Campbell was rubbish, so we can move on from there.
Wow.
Moving into the midfield. This is another huge one.
Too.
The midfield too. So we're only allowed 2 midfielders because we've decided to go for a 4-4-2.
Controversial.
2 strikers. So
I'm going to go controversial.
Go on.
No Lampard in my team. Not Lampard, sorry. No Gerrard in my team.
No Gerrard.
No Gerrard in my team.
Oh, that's so dumb.
No Gerrard in my team.
That is so dumb.
Who are you going with then?
I'm going to go with Lampard.
Over Gerrard.
Lampard over Gerrard.
In a 4-4-2.
And while yes, I am being a little bit biased here.
Viera.
Gerrard. I think it will be a good dynamic. I think they work well. It will allow.
It will
allow Lampard
goals,
to do what he's done so well at Chelsea, which is get goals, get assists, and it will allow Viera to do what he done best at Arsenal.
I'll say it now.
Win the ball.
Gerrard's the best midfielder the Prince ever seen. I think
I disagree with you.
I think Scholes is the only one that comes close.
Should we just say the nominees?
First.
Yeah, so the nominees that I've got down here, obviously I think there's loads that you can go for. I definitely haven't got everyone here, but I've got Gerrard, Keane, Lampard, Scholes, Viera, Kante, Alonso, Torre, Kevin De Bruyne, Silva and Modric. But Modric was, if you're going off their whole career, not just the Premier League. Because obviously he's world class. I wouldn't have Modric, I'll just put him in there as a shout.
Torre's a fantastic shout. I think he's one of the most underrated
as a player. If you're talking on their day, I completely agree. He's definitely there.
What about Claude? You chucking Claude Makelele in there as well?
Definitely, he's definitely up there, 100%. He was fantastic. He was like he was a lot like Kante before. I think for me, I'd have Kante and Viera over him just about, which is probably why I didn't include him. But 100%, he's one of the best I've seen, definitely.
But yeah, for me, Lampard and Viera.
because Viera covers and then.
I also reckon. I think it's a little bit unpopular. I think if you were to switch Lampard and Gerrard, I don't think Gerrard would do the numbers that Lampard did, but Lampard will do the numbers that Gerrard did. Even better.
What do you mean? Like if you swap?
If let's say them two
like
swap
their careers
swap.
So what I'd say with
I'd say
that,
Lampard will go into that Liverpool team.
So
Gerrard
you're talking about stats though. I think if you swap them two around, Liverpool don't get to a Champions League final. Liverpool don't win a Champions League final. Gerrard single-handedly dragged them there. If you look at that team,
I disagree with you.
And that final to have him there, he'd done that. And then I think to have Gerrard and that Chelsea team, I don't see anything that they achieved that. Like I think they would have achieved more, because I think Gerrard, in terms of, he could have played deep or further forward. It doesn't matter. So he was a bit further forward when he was younger, dropped back. But in terms of dominating a game and all round just being a phenomenal player, I think Lampard was obviously phenomenal, but I do think he relies a lot on his stats. I think Scholes and Gerrard as football players, I don't think it's that comparable in terms of natural talent.
I just think
it's another one where I think it's a bit systematic.
For a midfielder in this modern day, box to box, I think he was one of the best, and I think
Lampard,
yeah, and I think that's the reason he's in there.
He's definitely one of the best, I'm not going to deny it, but for me, I wouldn't. To be honest, if it was up to me, I wouldn't even have him in the Gerrard and Scholes bracket. I know that's a whole debate, but for me, it's not even close. I think they're just...
Understand this. 2005 Champions League, half-time. 4 million people turn off.
Yep,
at least.
I think one person killed themselves as well. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, bit deep, but yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, all right.
He would have been gutted in heaven when he found out they won it. Anyway, but yeah, no. Listen, I think it's such a valid point. I mean, Gerrard as a mentality, as controlling a game, as dominating the game, and I think when you look at Lampard, right? I know it's a really harsh to take away their best trait. Take Lampard's goals away, and he's an average football player. It sounds harsh. His movement and stuff, I get it. If you take his goals away, he is not he's not even near them. And Gerrard could hit a ball just as well as Lampard. I think he was just in a worse system, and maybe wouldn't have got as many goals. But in terms of people used to scream Gerrard or Rooney, when you're a kid, shooting in the backyard, that kind of thing. That's what people would say. They would never say Lampard, because he got goals, but he couldn't hit a ball.
It's a good analogy.
He couldn't hit the ball as cleanly, could he? I think take away Gerrard's goals, and he's still he's probably still the best player that the Premier League's seen. Lampard, take them away, and for me, he's nothing.
You can't take away his goals. His goals because
I know, because that is why he's there. I get that that's a completely fair argument, but what my point is, as a complete player, Gerrard is so clear, and I'd rather have him, especially in a 4-4-2, because I know you're thinking Viera covers, and Viera was like having two players, like similar to Kante, but I don't think Viera on his own could have done that with two wingers bombing forward, Lampard in the box all the time, two strikers. I don't see that working.
I think Viera could easily handle the mid attackers coming in.
I think Viera's overrated, but that might be a bit of a Tottenham bias. I'd have on his day Kante was for me.
That's just.
I think also, if you look at what they've won over their careers, obviously that Invincible team, like Kante's never done anything like that. But I think you look at Kante, how instrumental he was to the Leicester team, the Chelsea team. I think he's just been so good. I think he's won Euros, Champions League, FA Cup, Premier League. I mean, France, they won the World Cup. Obviously, he's instrumental. I just think that he can say, in terms of on his day and dominating Champions League semi-final, he got man of the match, didn't he? I just think he's just, for me, a player that I'd rather have in my team. But like I say, it's a bit of bias. I watched Kante develop into that player. I didn't watch Viera. So if someone said Viera's better, I'm not going to defend Kante in my life. I'm not. So
what would be your midfield too?
Now the team would either end up as 11 or 9. So the two I'm picking, it's a dangerous combination: Scholes and Keane.
Ooh. Man United bias in there.
I have to. Now, the only reason I am is Paul Scholes is the most underrated. If you ask all the midfielders around the world at the time who they would hate to play against, Xavi, Iniesta, it was always Paul Scholes.
I'd like to say as well, that's why I have Gerrard with Scholes. Yeah, I think Scholes. If he wasn't English and ginger, I think he's up there with the Xavi, to be honest. But
yeah.
And Keane, for me, just technically not the greatest.
Best leader, the Premier League.
Best leader. Tenacity.
In terms of, again, if we're talking about we're fielding two teams right now and they go head to head, I can completely get Keane.
Yeah,
in terms of, he's another one where if he was in that dressing room doing that 3-0 thing, you know that he's he's throwing fists basically. So, and I mean, that kind of dominance, we don't see that in the modern game. I think it's a weakness in the modern game. I think he was
one of the only people that actually stood up to Viera as well.
Yeah, like I say, he had fights with Peter Schmeichel and won. So I completely get Keane to be honest. And Scholes technically, like you were saying.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I'm going to go for Gerrard is a must.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'm also going to go for Paul Scholes though. But I think players deserve shouts. Like we haven't mentioned De Bruyne once.
Yeah, I think that's one where if it wasn't a 4-4-2, I think he might.
I reckon if it's a
edge it,
4-3-3, I think he's up there. Definitely.
He is.
Yeah.
You know what? Call me crazy. It's one that I think I'll get hate for. On their day, I'm taking for a team De Bruyne over Lampard.
No, right. Okay.
I am too.
No,
yeah,
I am. I'm
Every
taking
day,
De Bruyne
yeah.
over
Really?
his day.
No way.
I am.
I can't believe you guys are saying this.
You must
Just
love
take
Lampard.
the numbers away, like
No,
I actually
take the
am.
numbers away.
He was
I
so
actually am.
good on his day.
Just-
Oh my
And De
god.
Bruyne's not. Like,
No, yeah, De Bruyne is good and all, but oh my, Lampard. I've only seen a couple games,
Yep.
full games. I've seen a lot of highlights. Lampard was brilliant. The way he scored goals, moved off and on the ball. I think fantastic.
there's no denying that he was brilliant.
I think I'd rather have him over De Bruyne.
Interesting.
that
I think
technical ability of
yeah.
Kevin De Bruyne is there.
Yeah, I completely understand. De Bruyne is world class, but I
it
think
does come down to talent. I think Lampard is a prime example of a systematic player, not a world class talent player for me.
Let me use your argument then. Put Kevin De Bruyne in Lampard's situation. I reckon he's getting more numbers than Lampard.
And
in
put
which
Lampard in the
situation?
City
What, with
team.
Viera or that Chelsea team?
No, that Chelsea team. I reckon he's getting
No.
higher numbers.
Can do it at
easily.
Chelsea, to be fair. But
Yeah,
this
exactly.
De Bruyne, I think it's a weird one. I think you know what it is, right? I think De Bruyne is more than stats. Like if you understand football and you've watched enough, no offense, Jake, and you've watched enough of De Bruyne and that. For me, it's one of those where you just watch him and it's incomparable. Like you watch De Bruyne and every touch, every pass that he does in his prime we're talking about, it's glorious. Whereas Lampard, again, in his prime, phenomenal player, you're like, oh, he scored this many goals or whatever from midfield. But do you look at him and be like, wow, this man is unbelievable. We'll never see something like this for a very long time. Because De Bruyne, in terms of his passing, I think he's definitely top three in the Premier League, probably number one for me, to be honest.
And can we remember, please, that De Bruyne early on, Chelsea was with Mourinho.
Yeah.
Mourinho. Imagine if he was with Guardiola from that age.
Yeah. No, he would have been a beast in it.
Right,
but it's
so
just-
moving on then to the wingers. Now I'm guessing that the way you've done this, Frankie, is by one's on the left, one's on the right.
it's one of those where I think I don't actually have that many people. I think there's a lot more people not mentioned in the list, but I've got David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, Gareth Bale, Ryan Giggs, Eden Hazard, Barnes, Salah and Son are the players that I've got.
Barnes, really?
I think he's the weakest.
John Barnes.
Yeah, John
Oh,
Barnes.
okay.
We meant Harvey Barnes.
No, Harvey Barnes is the best player they've ever released it. Nah, but I think nice one, Jake. I think I would definitely not have Barnes. But for me, I'm going to start off and say it instantly. If we're going off the best years, I don't think we've seen better than Bale on the right, Ronaldo on the left.
Agree.
Completely
I think
agree.
Cristiano
I
Ronaldo,
completely
Ballon d'Or
agree.
year, and basically his Premier League career, once he got going, obviously signed for world record fee, turned into top three best players ever, arguably, or many people say first. I think that the dominance we haven't seen. They're the only two players that I've watched, and obviously I don't watch them as much live as some other people, but from what I've seen, the only players that you're going into a game, you know that whether they've got the ball 40 yards out or they're making a run into the box, they got a free kick, you know that this man's dangerous, and every single game they're going to be the biggest threat for their team. I don't think we've seen a player with that kind of danger than we have with Bale and Ronaldo, who are both bought for record transfer fees by the best club in the world. So
Yeah.
Agreed, but you said to me, Bale on the right, Ronaldo on the left, right?
yeah.
That to
Yeah.
me sounds like a La Liga team, with the best La Liga team. Not
So
Premier League.
yeah, I do get that. Obviously, Bale was on the left for us, and obviously he played down the middle under Redknapp a few times. But I think if I was to make an ideal team, I think there's no denying that Bale would do a job on the right, which is the reason why I've got him. It's one of those where, I mean, it doesn't matter where you've got either of them. For me, you've just got to have both of them, because they could just free roam and bag everywhere and anywhere. For me,
We mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but Bale in his final couple of seasons in the Prem was.
I know Jack, who unfortunately isn't here. He would have Salah due to having the most goals in a single Premier League season. But for me personally, he's not one of those where he's such a big threat. I think he's just, again, and it sounds really harsh because he's a great player, I think he's a bit systematic. I think without Klopp and Liverpool, I really don't think that he's anywhere near the heights that he's at. I think he's one of the best wingers the Prem scene, and numbers wise, arguably the best. But Like, it's one of those where you compare Giggs with very low numbers who didn't score that many goals, and Son who's got the most. But when it comes to as a player, I think it's a lot closer than the stats would say. If
we're going off Premier League 11, obviously we are.
Yeah.
What about Hazard? Do you think he should not?
And Hazard, what he did, I think I've got him on the list. Definitely get to mention.
Do you think I think he's up there, but I think Bale just nicks it.
At their best, I agree.
Why are we not giving more talk to Giggs?
Giggs'
dribbling ability alone, movement. I know Bale did
Not
it.
good brother,
2 seasons.
Second best Welsh player ever. That's all I'll say.
True. 2 seasons, Bale. The way I'm looking at it, 2-3 seasons.
That's true.
Giggs, 10 years plus.
It's exactly one of those, like I've said so many times, where if you want to go off a Premier League legacy and what they did in the Prem, not comparable. It's not even close. Obviously, Bale didn't win anything. He was at Spurs, to be fair to the guy, and Giggs won so much. And that goal, I believe it was FA Cup against Arsenal, where he takes the shirt off and he dribbles through. Like, I think for me, Giggs 100% is there. But if you're going off their very best year, I don't think it's that close, to be honest. I think I'd rather have Bale than Giggs for me. But again, I watch Bale. I love Bale. He's my club hero. Giggs, I didn't see. So
I respect that.
Yeah. So moving on to the
Mason, who did you have on the
I
list?
had Bale and Ronaldo, like you.
What about you, sir?
Ronaldo and Giggs.
Fair enough.
Beckham is overrated. I just want to say that. I loved him, but I thought comparing what we have, I don't think he'll come into this conversation.
Fair enough.
Personally.
Right, final two.
Do you think, before we move on, sorry, again, it's just one of those questions, I'm a bit biased. Do you think Son deserves a shout if Eden Hazard deserves a shout in terms of at their best? Because I don't believe Hazard won a golden boot with no penalties.
Son
and he was in a better team, Hazard.
Difference between Son and Hazard, I think Son's only done it, he's only had 2 real good seasons.
No, I think he's only been world class for like 3 years.
Yeah, but I think
he's been
Hazard's done it, and he was the main man at Chelsea for a good 4 or 5 years. I think.
Yeah, but that's a harsh way of looking at it. If Kane was there, he wouldn't have been the main man, so that's a harsh way of looking at it. I think Hazard was in a better team, a team that was winning like Premier League titles, and he was winning, I believe won Player of the Year and things. Obviously, he's a phenomenal player at his best, but my only point is, I think Son definitely is, for me, as good a player, because I think if you look at their traits, Hazard was a lot better at dribbling and maybe controlling the game, and he was more like a Messi-esque, like B-Tech Messi. But Son, in terms of his both-footedness, clinical, like what he adds to the team, I don't think he's far. I think if you said to me, would you rather have a prime Hazard or this current Son at Tottenham, I think I'd stick with Son, because the link-up he has with Kane, the amount of goals. Well, it's always going to be with bias when I talk about Tottenham. But even if I said there's no bias, there's probably something in the back of my mind. But obviously, I watch this man week in, week out. I watch Hazard a lot. I don't think that there's a huge difference for me. I think Son deserves a shout now after last year.
If that's the case, then look up JJ Okocha.
Well, JJ Okocha, I mean, he's arguably one of the best African players ever. And I think, was it Leeds or Bolton somewhere? Bolton, where he was just a threat and one of the best dribblers you've seen.
He was good in the Wembley Cup as well.
Of course, yeah. But I think as well, you were talking about how the Premier League and its modern era, how strong it is. Son is one of the only players, I think, he's a player in the Premier League where he gets into any team in the world for me, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think that he deserves a lot of praise for that. And I think that he is, to do it in this era, I think if you chuck Giggs in this era, Son makes him look like a clown, genuinely. And that sounds harsh, because Giggs was a world-class footballer, and he's one of the best the Prem seen. I know that'll pain you, sir.
That will.
But I actually think that Son, especially numbers-wise, which I've said a harsh way of looking at it, I think blows him out the water. Because Giggs was that 4-4-2 lower dribbler, whereas Son's just clinical. He could be a striker, really, Son.
Show me 2 more good seasons
of Son. And then you think he's in the conversation.
2 more good seasons, yep.
Yeah.
Later on down the line.
I genuinely think that I don't get why PSG or Bayern aren't coming in for him. I really don't. Like, why isn't the Real Madrid, Barcelona's? I know that the Premier League are the biggest league now, but even like Man City getting Grealish for 100 mil, like Grealish for 120, Son for 120, you'd pay that extra 20 million all day, any day. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah.
You got to deal with Daniel Levy.
That is the tough bit. I think that is, you know what, Daniel Levy, obviously keeping Kane and Son for this long is like one of the biggest underdog stories in Premier League history, to be honest. I don't know how he's pulled it off. Obviously, he got Kane to sign a 6-year contract. Son's just signed a 5-year deal. I don't know how he does it, to be honest. Like, obviously, I love the club and I love both players, but it shocks me how they're still here. But
they're building a project. Look at everything. You can buy into the vision.
That's true.
Right, so should we move on to the strikers now?
Right,
this is it.
So
the big boys.
The nominees we've got, and this is probably going to be the biggest debate of
And again, I think this is a bit of a longer list, but there's definitely people missed out.
Yes. So we've got Cole, Alan Shearer, Eric Cantona, Michael Owen, Dennis Bergkamp, Thierry Henry, Gianfranco Zola, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Wayne Rooney, Didier Drogba, Robin van Persie, Luis Suarez, Sergio Aguero and Harry Kane.
I think Henry's just...
There's just so many names in there.
So many names.
I mean, what I will say straight away, I know I've been saying I'm going off best year, but I'm not having Owen. I know that Ballon d'Or year when he was young, but I think you do kind of have to recognise a player for their legacy at the same time.
Yeah,
I will agree with you.
And I think that... I mean,
Henry's
I
got
don't...
in there.
I'm looking at it now. I mean, Van Nistelrooy on his day, man. I mean, he's not in there for me, but wasn't he just like... In terms of as a striker... He was just clinical. Dennis Bergkamp and Zola, not as an out-and-out striker, but as in a two support striker. I mean, I think if you're going realistic, you just go Bergkamp and Henry because of what they had, to be honest.
I think,
But for me, neither of them are making my team. If you're going
neither
off the
Henry or Bergkamp.
Henry, I know he's one of the best that they've ever seen. Again, obviously, I hate the guy, bit of bias, but I actually don't think going off their best years. And obviously, you got the 20 and 20. You know, huge achievement, but so did Harry Kane, and he's not in my team. Like, I don't think he's quite there in terms of the best strikers. As a striker we've seen, I think he was a bit left-wing striker, great player, didn't quite do as well at Barca, and then was great for Arsenal. But for me, I think the two that I'll go for are Luis Suarez, because I think that 1 year at Liverpool, and obviously he's gone on to be, for me, top two best strikers ever, him and Van Basten as a striker. And I think that he's underrated for. He's got the second most assists in football history, and he's just one of the most. He's one of those where he's just always a threat. He's always pressing. He's running in behind. Like, he's a nightmare for defenders. And that 1 year in the Premier League where he missed the first few games, got 31 goals. If he hadn't missed those first few games, I promise you, he has the Premier League record. And I think that was a bit without penalties, which is absolutely insane. Insane. So he's got to be in there for me. And
it's tough. It's very tough.
Oh, there's so many. I think, Rooney. I mean, I wouldn't have Drogba. He's a big game player on his day, but I think I would go
telling
for...
us a stat that he only passed 20 goals in one season or something like that.
Yeah. I think you might have to come back to me. You know, I'm really struggling. I think Shearer is definitely one of the ones that you'd have.
I think for me, I'll go with Suarez and Henry. I think Suarez, I think that season when Liverpool almost won it, he was brilliant. And I think Henry, 20 goals, 20 assists, just fantastic. And what he'd done for Arsenal, and when he came back for Arsenal, got that goal in the FA Cup. I think, for me, he's just, them two would be the perfect. I think they work well together as well. Have Henry sort of dropping back, getting the ball, beating players, playing off. I think it would work. So I think Henry and Suarez for me, personally.
You know what? Looking at it now, I think I am going to have to go on back myself with a review. I think I was doing it the other day, just pairing, and I did a 4-3-3. Sorry, and I was actually going to have Rooney as an attacking midfielder just to get him in there because I think he's one of the best English. He's probably the best English player that we've seen. Obviously, striker. He went a bit further down. And then I had Suarez at striker, and I do think Suarez is number one, but I think behind him would have to be Henry. I think it would. As much as it pains me, I'm looking at the players on the list. I think obviously Rooney on his day, Aguero, a big honourable mention. He's probably third.
I was going to have him in.
Yeah, huge.
That moment against QPR,
greatest moment in Premier League history.
I was going to put him in for that alone.
It's one of those. You've got to respect it.
Jesus.
You've got to respect it though. Last minute.
I got a great story. So my dad and my granddad. My dad had never finished above my granddad in the fantasy football league, right? My dad had Aguero, and he goes screaming around the house in the last second because that goal won in the fantasy league for the first time. That's a great story, isn't it? Love a bit of fantasy football.
This is how angry I was. There's a tweet out there of me swearing at Joey Barton. He was the one who missed a tackle on Balotelli.
I like it.
You know what? I hear a lot of conspiracy theories about that. Did they let them do it? Did they let them win?
They were winning.
They secured staying up, I think, towards the end of the game, and that's where it was. Oh yeah, he's running. Yeah, don't bother going for the tackle. Like that Aguero goal, I think it was Balotelli's only assist in the Man City shirt, which says it all for me. Obviously, a great moment. There's no denying the season. They deserve the title, whatnot. But I think there's some research to be done. But Sergio Aguero, there's no denying. I think in terms of finishing, like around the box, one of the best you've seen. He's up there with Shearer in terms of clinicalness. Maybe wasn't as all round as the likes of Kane or Rooney. Nice one, Jake. But I think phenomenal footballer. Definitely big honourable mention. But Henry and Suarez are the two for me. I'll agree with Jake.
Yeah. For me, I'm torn between. I think Henry's got to be there, and then I'm torn between Suarez and Aguero. Again, I don't want to base this team just off who I've seen. That's the only problem with me.
Seen both of them though.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Aguero.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go Henry and Aguero up top. I just like you said, Aguero's finishing in and around the box was just absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Henry equally as brilliant, if not better.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, Shearer. I mean, we haven't spoke about Cantona yet. I'm just going by the old karate kick on the Palace fan. I'm just
My dad was at that game.
Oh really? I'm not. I'm just.
Yeah, I mean Cantona. The thing with him is he's another one where, in terms of mentality and what he brings to the team, the aggressiveness, a bit like Keane, and obviously Sir Alex clearly loved these players. He was so good, and maybe you'd have him in your team for that. But if you're going off what they did or their talent or on their day, I don't think. Obviously, still world class and one of the best of the Premier League. I don't think he's quite the level of Suarez or Aguero. Yeah, Aguero, fantastic player. He was just on his day, brilliant footballer.
What about you, sir?
For me, you have to go with Henry and Rooney, just because.
Another United player for you?
Just because I love style of play which is quick, one-sided football.
Yeah.
You look at Henry, pop it around the corner to Rooney, pop it, and they can make runs. Especially Rooney on his day when he was younger.
Yeah.
Absolutely could run, and you then think running behind. Henry could do that.
Of course,
Rooney could do that.
Yeah.
Paul Scholes.
I think the link up of them two would be just ridiculous.
It would be, and then
it's
for
passing
me,
ability, Rooney.
Yeah, exactly. They could drop back, one of them, like you were saying, Jake. Yeah, or the other one can drop back. So there's a lot of interchangeability. So in an all-time 11, that's why I'd put those two.
A big controversial, definitely biased one, and it's one of those only because I've seen him. I think give it 5 years, or when Harry Kane is retired and broken Shearer's record, I'm calling it now, he will. When Harry Kane's the top goal scorer in Premier League history and also one of the best passers that the Prem's seen, I think everyone will have him in this team. And I think he is, on his day, I think that season when he got most goals and assists last year, I think that's better than what Rooney's done.
I reckon if he can be it and win a trophy at Spurs.
Well, this is the thing. I think being at Spurs has, for me, single-handedly screwed him over. He got the golden boot at World Cup.
He's always
got 2 or 3 golden boots in the Premier League in a Spurs team, bear in mind. And he's taken Tottenham. I know Pochettino, obviously, he started Kane. He's the main man, isn't he? He just transformed Tottenham. But we went from a 6th, challenge for Champions League kind of side to we came second in the league, third in the league during the Leicester year, even though we were challenging all season against Leicester. I think we've just got so unlucky. And we just can't win anything. If Harry Kane had gone to City last summer, I think he comfortably breaks the record, and I think he gets less injuries because he gets less. He could be rotated and things, and then I think he wins trophies and he would have won the Prem. And I think it's then when people would appreciate him. I think it's really unlucky. I think he's genuinely. I think when he retires, he could be, if things go well and he wins things, could be the best striker the Premier League's ever seen. To be honest.
Side note, then, I know you just said what you just said. Take those 2 years plus on however many for Kane. Would you then be Shearer, Kane, or Rooney? Or are you sticking with Kane if he has those numbers in 2 years?
What do you mean? If
he breaks the Premier League goal scoring record, doesn't win a trophy, I would still have him
as a player, but that would probably be a bias thing. But then again, you can't deny it. I think winning no trophies and the others winning trophies, it's not a negative for Kane. I think it's a plus, because these are team trophies. Kane has won loads of individual awards, including a Playmaker award and the Golden Boot in the same year. World Cup Golden Boot. What is there more to win?
Golden Boot in the World
He's
Cup.
been in a crap team. That's not his fault. He's tried to leave to go to a better team, which wanted him. It's not a case of, for me... But that Harry Kane guy, he never quite did it, did he? I think Champions League final, everyone says he was crap. People forget he didn't play a game for half the year. That was his first game back. Is that not ridiculous? I think Poch starting him over Mora, who single-handedly got us that final, might have been a bit of a mistake.
That was tragic.
I think, but Kane, just individually, I think he will be the best striker.
Another thing on Kane, I think we talk about how one of either when you said Rooney or Henry could drop back, like what me and you said, I think Kane would do a fantastic job as playing off that sort of false nine.
I think he'd do better than Rooney.
Passing ability.
I think he would do better than Rooney as a false nine.
Do you know
Rooney's
what?
probably the most complete striker
I'm
we've
beginning
seen.
to agree with you. I think I've seen more of Kane than I have Rooney.
Of course, yeah.
But
England
I think,
captain.
Yeah, but I generally do agree with you, Frankie.
You can't be, if he retires England top goal scorer and Premier League top goal scorer and he played for Tottenham, I genuinely don't see how he's not there. But I don't see how he's not spoken about it already, to be honest. I think he's really underrated.
Yeah, he is.
I really think he is.
See your point. Still give him a couple of years, I reckon.
Yeah. I mean, he's just turned 29.
Yeah.
He's not a player that relies on pace. I think we've easily got 3 prime years left in him.
Mm.
And then even if he's like 35 and goes to a Palace and just takes penalties, which he's the best in the world at, I think he breaks his record. He's only like 80 away. We said this in a podcast recently, and everyone was shocked. Like when Mr. Jones was here,
I think it's
like,
less than 80. I think
it's ridiculously close. We're talking about like
4 years, 20 goals.
We're talking about 2 30-goal seasons, which he won't get in the Premier League. So let's say it takes him 3 years to get the 60. Right, I'll give the benefit of the doubt, and then he's got 4 years to get 20 goals, which he could do in a lower league side of the Prem. I think he will never leave the Premier League in his career. Wouldn't shock me if he retired at Spurs, but I think he will either way break Shearer's record for Prem and break Rooney's record for England.
Fair enough.
Injuries.
Well, that is going to be the end of the podcast.
That
Hope you guys enjoyed it. I think it was a pretty good topic today.
Going to run through our teams who we had quickly.
Yeah, so for me in goal, I had. Let me quickly get my team up. I've forgotten most of it.
I had.
Yeah, you go first quickly.
I had Schmeichel in goal. I had Walker right back. I had Cole left back. Then I had the centre back pairing of Van Dijk and Stam. Then I had Gerrard and Scholes with Ronaldo, Bale. And then my front two was Henry and Suarez.
Okay, so for me, I had Czech, then Trent, Rio, Terry, and Cole as the back four. Midfield four: Bale on the right, Ronaldo on the left, Viera and Lampard in that midfield, and then Henry and Suarez up front. So,
Team, you should do a vote at the end of this, by the way. See which one the
which
audience
team
agrees with. Yeah,
do you know what we'll do that? We're going to put it on the Instagram. Which team was better?
Yeah, we'll put a poll on the Instagram.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want mine as well?
Yeah,
go. What do I have? I had Kyle Walker right back, Ferdinand Company centre back, left back is Dennis Irwin, Schmeichel, and then midfield I had Scholes, Keane, right wing I had Ronaldo, left Giggs, and then Thierry and Rooney.
I think if we put all our teams like against each other, I think your team might come out on top in terms of tactically. So I think that's definitely something that I'd go for. But then I think individually, I still think I'd stick with my team. I don't see any weaknesses in that.
I'd stick with
all
my
good
team.
teams.
We're all going to say that, aren't we? But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next week with maybe a new guest or maybe it be the original four.